get started, and we'll obviously have people coming in. So just go through a quick intro and let you guys know what's happening next week before I hand it off to Leanne and Christine. So this is myself, Christopher. I have a small soil sampling company, kind of precision viticulture company called Mentality. Anthony is a financial planner working with small businesses, and we've just put this together because of kind of stuff that's happening with our clients. And we've been really, it's been awesome that people like Leanne and Christine, we had Sandra O on last week, are just willing to share and chat, and for everyone just to come together and support each other, find ways to get through this strong. One small housekeeping, we're doing this Thursday at 3:30. One thing I was wondering if there's potentially just, we've got enough people on here, enough of a sample. If there's a better time for you, like if for a bunch of you 3:30 doesn't really work, just throw it into the chat that it doesn't and maybe a better day and or time, and then we'll dialogue about that as well. We're narrowing down our topic for next week. We'll have this next week, Thursday at 3:30. But in 2 weeks, we're going to have on Al Hudick and Mark Hicken to talk about obviously the legal side, as well as have a real discussion around reopening, and then potentially Sandra was suggesting also with some, people sharing what they're seeing that can potentially be relayed. There's some new information coming out next week, so that'll kind of obviously change the discussion. So yeah, that'll be in 2 weeks. They're confirmed for that. And just lastly, once I'm done talking here, I'm going to mute everyone but Leanne and Christine. This is fairly informal. They'll kind of be talking for about 30 minutes, and then we'll reserve about 30 minutes for Q&A. But if you have a question during it or something pertinent, please just jump in, or else you also can message Anthony in the chat or throw it up in the chat. Anthony will watch that, and he can ask a question for you as well. So I think that's everything I got to cover. Thank you very much for Leanne of Town Hall Brands and Christine of OK Crushpad. You guys probably know these two women. So thank you, both of you, so much for joining us. And yeah, I'll let you guys take it from here.
Thanks so much, Christopher. Thanks for the invitation. And it's nice to see a lot of familiar faces on this Zoom, as well as some new ones. I'll do a quick start, and then I'll turn it over to Christine, because she has some other insights that I only learned of yesterday that I think would be really helpful to the group. But just to introduce, for those that don't know me, my name's Leanne, and I and my husband Andrew have a small marketing and graphic design agency in Vancouver called Town Hall Brands. We've worked in the beverage alcohol industry for 23 years, getting our start working with Christine. So we've worked with her for basically as long as we've been in the biz. And we do everything from marketing strategy, communications, and graphic design and branding. And it's a pleasure to be invited to share some of the things that are helping our clients do, during this pandemic. Christine can introduce herself, of course, but one thing that she'll share is the perspective of the winery owner and things she's been doing to try to keep her business going, as well as some of the insights she has as we get to start to move into recovery mode. So maybe, Chris, I'll let you do that intro, and then we can just play off each other as we do.
Excellent. Thanks, Leigh. Yeah, I think all of us were really sort of merrily going on our way sort of towards the end of February, early March. And little did we know that, life was going to change for us really abruptly. I think all of us were, we'd had a pretty rough fall and, tough harvest, grape wars. There were lots of things that were sort of not going in our favor this past fall. So I think we were all looking forward to a really robust spring and summer touring season. And I think it was quite shocking for all of us to see how quickly things turned against us. I think everybody's new favorite word is pivot. And it was really interesting for me to see how quickly some people did pivot and how others didn't. And I'm not just talking about the wine sector, I'm talking about other suppliers to us. We bank with the Bank of Montreal, and they were on it like, I think it was like maybe day 2 or 3, and we were in shock. And I was thinking, I think I better phone the Bank of Montreal. And my husband said, Todd's on the line from the Bank of Montreal. And they'd had a plan in place. They had everything laid out for us. They knew what they needed to do for us. And then on a counterbalance to that, I had an insurance company that we've been dealing with for decades that just sent us an email the other day that said, we're here to help. Well, if at this point you're telling us you're here to help, you probably aren't. So I think it's really been interesting for all of us, because we've really seen what suppliers we can count on, and also, who's there to really support us, not just from a supplier point of view, but also from our employees. I mean, we've seen a lot of shift in terms of employees who've been really fragile through this whole thing, who've needed a lot of extra support and hand-holding, and people who've just sort of rolled up their sleeves and said, yep, what do you need me to do? It's not to say one is a stronger person or a stronger employee in the long haul. It's just that people have taken this differently, and they've all needed different levels of care and support. So it's been a really interesting time, and I think I've certainly learned a lot through it. Yeah, we do a lot of work in the restaurant business. We sell about 5,000 cases a year directly to restaurants in Vancouver. And so that is a massive chunk of our business that had to be redirected very quickly. We're also not very strong on direct to consumer. It's a channel that we've, because quite frankly, screwed up and done a really bad job of. I don't think there's any way of sugarcoating it. We've had bad platforms. We've had a lot of change of personnel and club managers, and we just haven't really paid attention to it. So we started, fortunately, we started in this fall and building that channel out, but we were definitely behind the 8 ball on that. So for us, that was definitely a weak point coming into this crisis. Whereas I know some of you have much stronger direct-to-consumer platforms and a more sort of diverse channel strategy than others. So we've had to do a lot of really sort of quick thinking. Some of the things that we've done at Okanagan Crushpad is sort of really do a push out to friends and family. And we've gone out to all of our employees and basically anybody that we know, and we've done a direct push out to people. And you'd be surprised at how far reaching that has gone. We've offered people a 25% discount. And we have our own sales team. And so our sales team, rather than delivering or calling on restaurants, changed direction, and they've been delivering cases to consumers. So we've been making those deliveries out of our Vancouver warehouse, which is illegal, as you all know. But we've been making that happen pretty quickly. We immediately did free shipping, and again, that was something that we did in the first few days. Again, I think if people are implementing free shipping now, it's a little late to the party. That was a strategy that worked really well in the first few weeks of March, and it's you're just sort of the last person to offer free shipping if you're doing it now. We also implemented a virtual tasting experience, and we did it a little differently because what we're doing is we're having our employees guide you through a tasting. So you order a package of wine, and it gets delivered out to all the people that you want to invite to the virtual tasting. And then everyone gets together, tastes through the same 3 wines, and it's guided by one of our cellar employees or one of our sales staff or myself. And we basically walk people through. When we originally started, the idea was that we were going to be on the call with people for about 20, 25 minutes and walk them through it and then say goodbye and leave them alone. But our staff have been on the calls for about 2 hours. They just can't seem to get off. But people are having a blast, and they're really enjoying it. And it's like a real intimate touch into what we're doing, who we are, what the wines are. And we're getting to be very familiar with those people, and they're getting to be familiar with us. We were going to run that till the end of April, and we've decided to extend it on because it's just gaining momentum. We're doing so many that we can't keep up with them. So that was just an idea that we had that we implemented that seems to be taking off really well. We also did a lot of, we're working on a lot of private labels with LRS. As you all know, they're really busy. So we've implemented some private labels. and we've gotten them into market. We've got one in right now. It's at the Jack Group. So it's called Gratitude, which is very timely because there's, it's a really good time for people to buy gifts and let people know what they're grateful for and thank people for any support or help they've given them during this difficult time. So there's a red, white, and a rosé. Each has a slightly different label, and it sort of depicts the great outdoors and being outside and enjoying British Columbia, and we're all excited to be able to go out and do that again. And that loaded in a couple of weeks ago, and we're working on another one with another retailer that's coming out in about 2 weeks. We're also launching a brand new brand that will be a direct-to-consumer brand that's going to be launched on Monday, and it will be $275 delivered to people's door. There's 12 different labels in a colorful case. It's 4 whites, 4 rosés, and 4 reds, and it's for $275 shipped to your door, taxes in. And I think Leanne will kill me if I tell you anything more than that at this point. Won't you, Leanne?
I don't know, kill's a strong word, but please don't spoil.
I'm always the one going, here's the package. And she's like, no. So, I mean, those are some of the things that that we're pushing and launching out right now. Again, trying to pivot away from restaurant sales and sort of redirect some of that. I think we're all kind of up in the air as to what the touring season is going to look like. There's been a lot of interesting things that I've seen people doing. One of them was the Niche Wine Co. They did a really cute little promotion, which was called Small Batch, Big Love. And they also did another one recently that they put out, which had bubble bath products and in with wine. And I noticed Upper Bench, you guys put out a package that had the cheese and the wine together, which is awesome, because I think people are looking for things where you're layering in more than the wine. And I thought that was a really nice little offering. I also noticed direct pitches like Murray with the wine umbrella. She just put something out on Facebook and just said, hey, friends and family, I need you to buy my wine. And a lot of people responded to that. And then there's other things going on, like Township 7 and Church and State are doing fundraisers that benefit the BC Hospitality Foundation. And so, there's giving back opportunities. So rather than free shipping, they're loading into LRS stores and benefiting charity that's helping people during difficult times. I know that the Jack Group is going to do a fundraiser for the food bank, the Vancouver Food Bank. So $1 of every gratitude wine is going to go to the food bank. So there's things like that going on as well that I think are really sort of interesting and just ways of getting people's attention and sort of standing out. I think Christopher, you and I chatted, and I think one of the challenges that a lot of us have is sort of getting attention with the big guys and their collaborative efforts and their, the great estates of the Okanagan and some of the other bundling efforts that they have, and they've dominated the internet with their offerings. But I think that if you look at what they're doing, they're trying to find 30,000 customers. We're trying to find 300 or 400 customers for an offering. So sometimes our small grassroots approaches can do the trick for us. I don't know if you wanted to add to that, Leanne.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick up from there. I think that's a great point. If I just look across who's on this call, most that I'm familiar with are smaller, medium, enterprise size. So the ability to, they say during a downturn, that's the most important time for you to market, right? Because you'll break above those that are busy dealing with crisis and you'll break out of the noise. But this pandemic has presented something completely new and different for all of us. At a time when we thought we could just do our usual marketing plans, even to those of us who have well-laid plans, those went out the window. So then how could we quickly adapt to, the new need, which is serving people where they are? And I know that, Christopher, you said that this might be about finding new customers online. Like that was kind of the sellout you gave for this session. But I almost think like finding those new customers should not be your priority. I think if you've got a good customer base to begin with, you know, Christine touched on some of the ways to just talk to them. Talk to your friends and family, talk to your own personal network, find those that are already familiar with you. You know, there's lots of stats talking about how much harder it is to get a new customer than it is to, you know, upsell your current one. So, you know, when was the last time that you got on the telephone and actually called, you know, your friends, your family, your customers, and gave them a high touch like that? That wasn't in person. I think this presents a perfect opportunity for that. And I don't know about anyone else on this, but I'm using my phone to actually make phone calls more than I have in a lot of time with this, because you just need to find those ways to keep communicating with people. Your employees, of course, can be your best ambassadors. And, you know, Christine using that tactic to do a friends and family offer, I would suggest that everybody emulate that. Your employees are always your best, you know, group to go out on your behalf. And then talking about your digital audiences. So if you've got a following on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, any of those channels, this is an opportunity to really over communicate, because all of the eyeballs are online, but it's also really noisy. So you don't want to appear tone deaf to what's happening at a time when you need to be empathetic and sensitive. But you also do want to be able to take advantage of a brand, like as a brand, to be able to go, okay, here's my audience. They're locked in and they're looking for something. So my suggestion is to not talk about the pandemic, not talk about the negative COVID-19, because they're getting a lot of that already, but instead give them something that's a little fun, a little bit of lighthearted. Everyone's looking for a little bit of ways to be entertained right now. So tell the story, let them know what's happening in the cellar, vineyard, what's happening with your team. You know, keep on with those storytellings on those digital channels. And after you tell stories a few times, then you make the ask. You know, it's about give, then ask. You know, building that relationship up before you make the offer of what you have. And then when you're ready to make the offer, make sure that purchasing journey is as easy as possible, because you can have abandonment of cart, you can have abandonment of the idea, unless you make it really easy. So make sure that your e-store is working well, test it out yourself, get your employees and friends to test it out. And then once you know it's working well, decide what products you need to focus on, package them up so they look good, make sure you've got good photos of them, and then start sharing them digitally. You can do all that without spending another cent. Then if you're ready to spend, you can start going, okay, I'm going to put some money behind pushing this. I'm going to pay a media influencer to, you know, spread it to their network. I'm going to buy traditional ad on the radio. Those are the ways you can go from there. And I think that if you just work on building from what you have, then you can talk about, okay, how am I going to find the new? And the new is usually when you have to start making the spends. And you can build referral programs, and you can do an Ask a Friend program and things like this to help attract some new eyeballs. I don't know if we want to go from there back and forth.
Well, I think that's a really good point, Leigh, because what I was thinking about the other day is not building out something that I'm going to have to throw away when this is all over. You know, because it's a 2 or a 3 month or a 4 month thing. So I want to build out something that I'm going to be able to launch out and then carry on with after this is over. So I think that's something that I've been giving a lot of thought to. For example, with the virtual tastings that we're doing, we had started a program in the wintertime where we were taking our best customers. And, you know, we've all got those customers that buy 40, 50 cases of wine a year, individual consumers. And we're like, how are you still alive when you drink that much? But we love you. And so what we started doing was we started throwing parties for them. And we threw a party for them out of our Vancouver office. And we would have them come and invite 30 or 40 of their friends. And we would throw a party, we'd get appetizers. We did one at the Listel Hotel. It was 110 people. And then we would sign them up as club members. We'd sell wine to them that night. And so we had one scheduled for April, mid-April, that we had to cancel. And so anyway, and this is one of our top customers. And so we ended up turning that into a virtual tasting that we've got booked for May. And we thought, well, this is great. We can do this. We can do this till the cows come home. And we also had a tasting plan for the trade with our winemaker, and we had to cancel that. So again, we turned that into a Zoom tasting. We sent all the wines to the customers, and then we did a Zoom tasting with Matt and the wines. And so instead of sending Matt to market, we sent the wines to the individuals, and then we did the Zoom tasting with them. So I think, there's things that we're doing that, and don't tell Matt he's never leaving Summerland ever again, but he's never leaving Summerland again. But, there's things that we're doing that I can see that we can build on these, and they're practices that we can hopefully carry on with in the future. We're not going to have to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, adding to that too, just again, talking about the Zoom tastings and, the virtual tastings, a lot of wineries have, maybe it's brand new to them, but they've taken to doing lives. So doing a Facebook Live, and it's just a check-in, and maybe they're talking about what's happening or how they're adapting, or they're doing scheduled lives. So letting people know that at this time on this day, I'm going to go live and I'm going to share, this particular bottle and tell you about it. I think it was Sandra, and I don't know if she's on this call, but I think it was Sandra who said, like, I don't want anyone to tell me again what a wine tastes like. I'm not tuning in for that. And I argued with her, and I said, well, actually, that's what I keep hearing in all of my private messages and in all the comments on any lives that happen. Because people can't come into your tasting room and actually trial, they really want super deep description on what the wines taste like, what it will go with, how it can be enjoyed. So I think like you could use that as a takeaway of like letting people know, yes, our new releases are here, and this is what it tastes like, and how you can bring it into your home and enjoy it. So yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Cece or Chris, if you want to start adding in.
Well, I mean, I think the other point to that is that we're all sick of our cellar, and we're all tired of going out and stomping through our vineyard. But one of the things that I do quite often, if any of you have gone onto my Facebook account, is I go out to the farm and I harass my sheep and cuddle my dogs, and I put it on Facebook, and people love to follow that. And I think one of the things that we can't underestimate is how desperate a lot of people are to go outside right now and experience nature. And we're so lucky we live in it. So like, take your phone and take your iPad and go out into your vineyard, go into your cellar and take them for a tour and show them where you live and show them where you work. Because I think people are just dying they're dying to come back out to wine country. They're dying to see where we live and work and what we do, and what's happening in the vineyard right now. And so I think if you just walk out there with your phone and give them a little trip around, I think that just goes a long way. And then take them into the tasting room and crack a bottle of wine and taste it and tell them all about it. So I really think that we can do things like that are going to bring our experience to people that are locked in their houses in Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton right now, and those are the people that are going to come and visit us the minute they can. We all know that.
Yeah, well said. Christopher?
Yeah, so one of the questions I had, was what makes for you guys, like, what do you see as making an effective tasting? Because like, viewing it as a consumer, I've watched a number of tastings now, and there's a pretty big difference. Like, you could host tastings and it can be bad, isn't engaging, you're not getting a response. So what's setting a good tasting or an amazing tasting away from just an okay one?
You're talking about a virtual tasting.
Virtual tasting, yes. Not in person, no.
Well, I think you sorry, Leigh, I think you have to have whoever's on the line with you needs to be engaging. I mean, Matt is very technical, but he's very dry, and he's not that, he mumbles. So we have other people on our team that are better presenters, Like Julian's fantastic. He does a great job, and some of the sales team, they do amazing jobs. You have to really sort of read the audience who's on the other line. When we're doing the virtual tastings for groups, and it's people that have bought and paid for the wine, you really have to take the cue from them, because sometimes they don't want to hear really that much from you. They want to talk to one another, and you're just kind of there. And then once in a while, you have to kind of rein them back in and get them back on track. And then other times they're super engaged, and they really want to, really want to be all about you. And so you really, I think, in order for it to be successful, you have to, you really have to sort of take your cue from the audience, the people that have paid for the wine that you're presenting back to them.
Yeah, and I'll touch on some more points about that similar. Let's just use a couple examples. One is that people have been pre-subscribed. They know what they're going to buy. Everyone's got the same wine. There's a certain time. Everyone's dialed in. It's a call like this, and then someone's going to guide them through in a tutored way. So if in that scenario, you want to, aside from making sure that all the shipping logistics worked out and everyone's, lined up properly to participate, you want to go like right with the basics. Do you have a nice, strong internet connection so that you're not chopping up when you're trying to sound intelligent? Do you have a nice background behind you so that you can show off a little bit of your brand? And then if you have the wines on the table beside you, do you have a helper who can help pour for you so that you don't need to leave the camera, be distracted, and all those things? And then basically, you can decide if you want to do a format like this where everybody's mute and you're just orating to them, or do you want it to be fully interactive? And in that case, it's a Q&A format, talking through, lots of dialogue. Part of it's reading the room and knowing what they want, and part of it is just like setting up the style. Then there's other instances where people just jump on and do a quick live and say, hey, who's got Sauvignon Blanc? Let's all taste Sauvignon Blanc at the same time, because isn't tomorrow Sauvignon Blanc day? So like, you could have any brand, anything. And that's when you want lots of dialogue, lots of chat. And maybe the platform that works best for that is something like Twitter, where you can have lots of tweets going back and forth, like BC Wine Chat, or, just making sure that you know your audience and that you're prepared to serve them in the way that they're expecting to be served. I think that would be my tip.
For everyone that just joined, if you have any questions, feel free to send it to Chris or I. One question that came up is, free shipping is expensive for direct-to-consumer centric small winery. How are you recovering the costs with the big couriers?
Well, I think if I'm looking at free shipping as replacing the discount I would give hospitality, right? So if I'm selling a bottle of wine to hospitality for $16, and I'm shipping a case to a consumer, and I'm giving them a $20 discount on the shipping, I'm factoring that in, because my pricing on the case to the consumer isn't $16, it's probably $20. So I'm just factoring that in to my overall mix. So basically, I'm looking at this as a case to hospitality at 16 is a case to direct to consumer to 20. 4 times 12, $48, minus 20, I'm still $28 ahead.
Comments in the chat. John Clarities. Hi, John. He just made a note in the chat as well. He said, build it into the price or eat a portion of it, then remarket to them with higher margin wines.
Yeah, exactly. And, sometimes it's a mixed case, and some of the products are maybe $35 a bottle and some are 16. People usually like a mix of wines. So when you look at that $20 for shipping, it's usually over a broader base of price points.
Go ahead.
So I'm Digby Leigh, and I don't know very many of you. And I'm not in the very exciting winery industry. I own a law firm. So that puts me kind of in a different place. But I love wine, drink quite a bit of it. And I'm sure I don't know everybody, because a lot of you I can't see, and I can't tell what wines you're associated with. So, but I did have, so I have a business with 30 people in it, and I think I'll just share a couple of different points. And I've been in my business for almost close to 40 years, ouch. And getting work is important to me. So I think a lot about marketing and how you go about that. And I thought I would just add on a little bit to what Christine and Leanne said. And this is my spin for what it's worth. And my business is quite a bit relationship driven. But one thing I found is if at all possible, it's Zoom and FaceTime. It's visual and connecting. And although it's exhausting, it's easier on the phone when you don't have to pay attention. It is very connective and a very good thing. I think that, one of the things that is really helpful, and we all tend, when we know a lot about our businesses, we all want to get to, selling and talking about our product. But, if you're a Michael Gerber fan, you look at his book on lead conversion, it still applies in every case. The most important thing, I believe, is actually developing a rapport with the people around you. So make sure you take enough time to kind of like find out how people are doing and be real about it. If I sound a little bit lectury or preachy, it's because I'm getting older and I've had way too many experiences. But I always find when young people around me are, they want to get right to the point. They want to talk, they just want to get into it. But it's a fact that until the shoulders go down, whether it's on Zoom or FaceTime, then developing that connection. And so, I think that if you can do that, then you're off and running in whatever you're doing. And I know a guy that Chris and Anthony and I know well, Michael Canick. Every time we open up with him on any size group, there's always a sort of an icebreaker, like it's a really, how are you doing? What's a personal highlight from the last week? Or, I use with my staff when I get together, I go, tell me something you think nobody here knows about you. But something that kind of gets a bit more personal, a bit more vulnerable. And if you follow that stuff, trust and vulnerability is kind of where you build off of. So anyway, just adding on in terms of, what my experience, and I've been doing this marketing thing for quite a while, and, had my own business now for about 28 or 29 years, and, started off in a large firm. So I wanted to share that.
Digby, that's a really good point, because I think on day 2 of this whole thing rolling out, I got this email from a fellow that I work with in Chile that I haven't heard with for 2 years, who I've emailed many times, who've never replied to my email. And it was like, oh, Christina, I hope you are being safe. And I know it's not sincere at all. He just blanket emailed everybody in his contact list. And John Clarity's and Leanne, you know who this person is. You probably got the same email. But, it wasn't sincere at all. And I think taking the time to reach out to people who are, important in your life. And John Clarity's and I had a nice conversation about a week ago, one-on-one on the telephone. And I think having those contacts with people, finding out how they are, what they're doing, how they're managing things, I think it's really important. And that's a really good point that you make. Yeah.
Hey, Christine, how long should the videos be of the vineyard? Or what have you been posting?
Oh, me? I mean, if it's more than 2 minutes of me herding my ducks back into my vineyard, people probably fall asleep. But less than 2 minutes, definitely just little snippets of walking through and, quick, real quick.
Other questions?
I wanted to, if there's no other questions about that, I wanted to talk about sort of reopening. Do you think it would be a good time to sort of talk about that for a little while?
We're gonna do a whole topic on that with Al and Mark in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, I 100% would.
I've been thinking about it myself, and I don't think you can, as a winery, I don't think you can leave it too long to start thinking about that, to start thinking about what your service program is going to look like. because we all know we're not going to be serving the way we did. So I've been giving some thought about what that's going to look like at our place and how I'm going to start communicating that out to my customers.
Well, I mean, that, that's definitely one of the questions I had. If we maybe look a little bit at the online portion for Christine Land, like, what do you see that? Because Christine, you were talking about it carrying over before, right? Doing things now that carry over and last. So what do you see? When we start to reopen, when what do we need to be carrying over, and how is behavior going to change that we need to be capturing now?
Well, I've been wanting to move away from bellying up to the tasting bar myself. Like, I've wanted to move away from that model. And we were going to build a brand new big tasting room this year, starting in September, and have it be open for next spring. And fortunately, we didn't dig into that yet. So we might push that down the road a year. But I think what we're going to do is move to table service this year. And so I'm going to start seeing that. I'm going to start that process now. So I'll do it in a small way, and I'll start experimenting with what that looks like. Fortunately, I came from the restaurant industry years ago, so I have an idea of what, I need to do. But I think we're going to move to that because I just don't see this being a year where anyone's going to belly up to the bar and be comfortable using a spittoon or doing any of that jazz. So I'm going to start building out a model this year that I can then carry on into my new tasting space in a year from now.
We definitely had a couple other requests for you to talk more about opening. So if you have any more thoughts, people would like to hear.
I've just written what it's going to look like. And so what I've done is I've got a sort of a before and after little, this is what we used to do, this is what we're going to do. And I'm going to give it to Town Hall, and they're going to do a little diagram, because people are, if you can just put it into a little chart or graph, people seem to understand that. And so I'll put that up on my website and give them sort of, I think that it's key that we give people ultimate peace of mind here. And if we're going to get them to come back, whether it's a restaurant or a tasting room, we have to give them ultimate assurances that we have their well-being in top of mind. So I'm looking at things like having a guest sign-in book where they leave their they leave their name and phone number, and we're going to log in the time that they came and visited us. So if there's an incident at our place, we can contact them. And we will not harass them with marketing stuff. This is merely a log for safety reasons. So if there's an incident at our place, we can get back in touch with them and contact them and let them know. Or we can hand that thing over to public health officials so that they can contact them. Things like that. We're going to make sure that we take the temperatures of the staff. We're going to have a log so that we can have a log for the staff where they register their temperatures and they sign in. And we keep all that information, logs on the bathroom, so that we, when you go to the airport and you see, that there's a chart that tells you when the washroom was cleaned, all that kind of jazz. So we're going to have to start doing all that kind of stuff. And we're going to communicate that out. It'll all be visible, but we're going to, not to that detail on our website, but we're going to let people know that we're going to physically distance them. We're going to have table service. We're going to bring flights to their table so that we limit the amount of back and forth with wine to them. And we're going to take orders for wine tableside, and then we will deliver the wine to them. So more along the lines of the experience that if any of you have been to Napa or Sonoma recently and gone to one of the top wineries there, that's the way you get served there. So you're not running around a tasting room, picking bottles off a shelf, taking them to a cashier. You're sitting at a table, you fill out a form, and the wines get brought to you, or even to your car. And you don't pick and pack your own stuff to your car. So that's more what we're going to do this year. We'll probably see a fraction of the people we normally see, and the goal is to treat them like gold. We normally do food service. We're not going to do food service because we don't really have a proper kitchen, and we're going to leave food service to you guys who have proper kitchens and have food safe and sanitary measures in place, and we'll leave it to you. I don't know, Upper Bench and Hillside, if you guys are doing it this year, or I see head shaking. Oh, Kathy's on mute. You guys are on mute.
Unmute, Kathy.
So we don't know about food service. We're doing takeout right now, and we've got a lot of area because we have the upper patio and the lower patio, and we're just looking at options. Fortunately, we put in a private tasting room over the winter because we do have a crystal ball, I guess.
You were bored.
Yeah, as well as a pass-through window. So right now, that's what we're doing, and people come to the window, and only the staff member touches the bottle of wine, and so we're fortunate to kind of be set up for that, and then we'll just ramp it up as we feel it's possible. Shalane, you want to say something about it?
I think for us, for reopening, the key thing for me with the wine shop is ensuring the safety of our staff. We can control that. I can't control whether Joe Smo from Vancouver or Alberta even believes in COVID or is properly social distancing. But what we can do is we'll need to be putting in proper measures with PPE for our staff members. That's going to include face masks, gloves. We're going to have to really look at the whole entire gamut of what that looks like, because we can control how safe our employees are and how they feel. That's going to be the biggest thing. They need to feel comfortable. It's we all go into the grocery store and feel the heebie-jeebies right now after leaving. And so there are frontline people who are ambassadors, and we need to ensure that they feel good about coming back.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have all of that. And also, they need to be comfortable with one another too. So if you have one employee who's not following the processes or the protocols and very cavalier about the whole thing, and then others who are uber freaked out about everything, you've got to make everyone toe the same line and the same processes, right? Or it's not gonna.
I think right now what I'm doing personally is that because we kind of lucked out as well, we got hit with not being able to being open 4 days before we were going to open. So none of our seasonal staff came back. So it was not laying people off. It was just a continuation of them not being employed with us at that moment. However, I think it's important, even though they're not technically our employees right now, is I'm reaching out to them and asking them how they see reopen looks like, and what their stressors are going to be. And because they're the people who deal with it, it's not going to be me necessarily every day down there dealing with the public, or Kathy or Lana, or it's them. And so I want to find out from our actual frontline staff who are experiencing it what they need from us in order to feel comfortable coming back.
No.
So we're just about to wrap up here. So maybe one final question someone would like to get in.
I just, this isn't a question. I was on a call with Minister Popham this morning, and she pointed out, because obviously one of the concerns is viability of small wineries, a lot of whom didn't have DTC platforms or e-com platforms. And she said, oh, my ministry is really good at helping people out with that, get in touch with us. I don't really know what that looks like, but she said that she has a sizable staff who are very good at it, and they have been working with other agricultural products with the markets, and so she kind of offered that up. So if you know of anyone who needs help that way, send them to Ministry of Agriculture.
So a couple of questions. One, I posted this on LinkedIn. This is the norms that have got us into this situation, meaning, and we never question or we question and we get quashed, is summer is a big source of income for the wineries. You have 4 million people, population of BC, to sell to. Imagine if you had the rest of Canada, 34 million people. So being able to sell comfortably, safely without the fear of retribution from liquor boards and provinces for BC wineries to sell their product all across Canada now this is a stress test. And we are failing in many aspects of helping small business. And this is the time to jump on the Minister of Agriculture. Quite frankly, wineries that don't have a DTC or any web platform deserve what they get, because the web has been around for 20 years. There's all sorts of help out there for them to establish a website and a web portal and consumer direct in British Columbia. So that's the number one thing. So what's the province doing about that? CC, do you have an answer for that?
No, I don't think they're doing anything about that. I think they've been busy trying to, in their mind, they allow it, right? So they allow any Canadian wine to come into British Columbia, and it's now up to all of the other provinces. The feds allow it. It's just Ontario, Quebec are the big holdouts, and Ontario just digs her heels in all the time. Now there's, what is it, a $200,000 fine or something like that if we get caught into Ontario. I just sent 4 cases this morning, so.
Yeah, I mean, see, these are the stress tests. I mean, look, in my situation, I've been lobbying trying to get samples legally because I have to bring them in through importers, which I don't trust. So now if my travel is curtailed, how am I supposed to assess the new vintage if I can't get samples? Because I don't want them to have them sent to importers. So these are the things that you need to bring the government in a concerted effort to show that the idiocy of the rules and regulations. I've been doing this for a long time, and it takes a long time, but it's stuff like this. This is a prime opportunity for the BC wineries to get together and knock on the minister's door. I mean, where was the minister before knocking on your door to saying, hey, let me help you with the website? Only in an emergency?
Well, we're trying to get them to allow for direct to consumer from secondary registered storage lockers, storage facilities. So that, here's the deal, we're all trying to get couriers to pick up from the Okanagan. Super expensive. And there's all these couriers in Vancouver that can't.
Sorry to interrupt, Chris, because when I was lobbying the government, we said we need to have secondary offsite storage. One, because real estate's so fucking expensive that a small wine shop when I first started, 1,000 square feet, well, I couldn't get the properties next door to me, needed to have offsite wine storage. Of course, it went in the ear, went out the other. The most recent round with Susan Anton, we can have offsite storage now, but the delivery has to be made from the store.
Right.
Meaning, so I have to go to the offsite storage, go back to the store, load it in, and then load it up. Right. This is what we deal with, and you deal with on yes. So Washington State, the biggest boon that Washington State did was allow for secondary tasting rooms, because all the tasting rooms are at 5 hours on the other side of the Cascades. So what happened is Woodinville now has a wine route. They took all the signals out, they put roundabouts, there's no long traffics, and what popped up? Restaurants, art galleries, all the accoutrements that go with the wine industry, and they all have secondary tasting rooms. And it rock and rolls, and they mark it up here, 2 hours from door to door. Andrew Will, all sorts of wineries. Brian Carter. This is the antiquated thinking, or this is the lack of vision that British Columbia has, because we sell everything locally. But now all of a sudden, oh, we can't sell to restaurants. Calgarians aren't coming. Those types of things, right? So now we have to be able to sell to the other parts of Canada and make it easier for customers to get product.
Well, and we also have to lower our expenses. So instead of having a $20 shipment to a consumer in Vancouver, how about using a Vancouver courier from a Vancouver warehouse and having it cost $7?
So why don't you do this? You phone Ryan Beatty up and ask him if it has any warehouse space, and you get 10 wineries together and have a co-op space.
Already working on it.
Yeah.
So Christopher, in terms of timing of this thing, if you have it any later than 3:30, John Clarity's is going to drop more than one F-bomb. Just the longer the day goes on, the more.
It was at 4 o'clock. John is just permanently muted.
That's okay. Yeah, but sorry. I say these things for those of you who don't know me. I say these things because I went to the liquor board for you. Can we have delivery? No. Customer has to come in the store, order the wine, then you can arrange for delivery. They can't order on the phone. I said, well, email was invented. I had a website. No, can't have that. Why? You're not allowed to advertise wine. Can we have winemakers' dinners? No, you can't have that. Why? You're not allowed to pour wine off-site. Eventually, we've got all these things, but it's taken 35 years. So BC Wineries, Hillside, I haven't met this lady. You guys got to get on it now because you're going to get slammed. And there's going to be another disaster and another disaster and another disaster. And if you're not preparing yourself for winter and the future, you're climbing uphill. Sorry, Sissy.
Kathy Malone, I'll send you a picture of John Clarity's. So if you see him coming up the driveway, you can lock yourself in your office.
Okay, let's start wrapping there. Just before we wrap up, Digby just had something to share just about the wage subsidy program. So he's gone through it as a lawyer. So Digby, just as quick as you can, take it away.
You know, I don't have quick. Sorry. So we applied. So I'm not an accountant, but I now know way more about it than I wish I had to. But the good news is if you are hiring people and you qualify, so, you know, really briefly, if cash or revenue, like accrual revenue, goes down 15% in March, or from March to March or March to January, February, and you qualify, then you can apply. And it's a big number, you know, if you're hiring people, because it's 75% of their wages up to a maximum. Gosh, I sound like I know this stuff now. Up to a maximum salary of $58,750. So just in terms of the logistics, if you go on and try and do it, it's really difficult because you've got all these things going on. So I'll just give you kind of one heads up. So when you go on and you go to apply, and you have to figure out what a weekly salary is, multiply it by 4, and then you've got what you can apply for, you know, up, you know, 75%. So it's $875 if you're at the maximum salary per employee per week. So you can just, if you happen to have 10 or 20 or 30 people, that's such a big number. One of the tricks is you have to deduct the 10% that you've already paid or that you've already claimed on any withholding. And it's not what you've actually done, it's what you're deemed to have received, what you could have been eligible for. So the real trick is that the periods don't line up. And, you know, the period of the subsidy is actually 28 days, but the 10% only applies to 25 of those 28 days because it didn't come in until March 18th. So you actually then have to take, you know, when you deduct, you only have to deduct 25/28 of the 10% that you're entitled to. And if that makes no sense to you, don't worry, but there's a trick to it and it's not very easy. And if anybody's kind of stumbling a little bit, you know, we spend a lot of time online and with our accountants figuring it out. Happy to share what I know.
Great. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much to Leanne and Christine. Really appreciate you guys taking the time and sharing. I'm sure there'll be a lot more discussion of this. Again, reminder, we're on next week at 3:30, and then in 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about We're going to have Mark Higgin, Al Hudick on to talk about the legal side, and we'll have a bigger discussion around opening up as well. So thank you everyone very much for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.